Morning, everyone. Welcome everyone to our March ordinary meeting. I'll read the civic affirmation. We gather today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability for the advancement of this district, the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respect to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to people. Okay, councillors, welcome. Everyone. Apologies, I have none. Really good. Councillor Mayman, you want to apologise?
No, thank you, Mayor. I don't want to apologise. Just want to draw your attention to your name tags need to swap on the desk.
Only our mother.
The CEO's the Mayor and the Mayor's the CEO. Just because we're...
You make it. Oh.
Just because, just because we're... Thank you.
Thank you. Acknowledgements. I don't believe I have any. Number 3 on the agenda, declarations of conflict of interest. Do anyone have any conflict of interest to declare in this agenda, please? I take it none. Item 4 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting, including the confidential minutes held on the 20th of February, and we don't need a second motion, do we? And also the special meeting of the 27th, or do you want a separate motion? Separate motion. So the first one, please, is the ordinary meeting of the 20th of February, including its confidentials. Councillors, someone move that way, please. Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Bland is the second. Any discussion around the veracity of them? There being none, put the motion. All those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously. And we confirm the minutes of the special meeting held on the 27th of February. Councillor Qualman. Thank you. Is there a seconder? We do need a seconder. Councillor Arthur. Any discussion? Be none, I put the motion. All those in favour? As against, that's carried also unanimously. Number 5, adjourned business, we have nil. Number 6, Mayor's report. Councillors, do you have any questions around my report?
It's a busy one.
Mr. Mayor, just for the purposes of the public record, if you wouldn't mind talking to your, I might be wrong here, sorry, is the meeting with the Minister in here regarding health?
Yes, no, it's not, sorry, councillors, that was in March, so just Councillor Peach is alluding to, we did have a meeting arranged with our State Member of Parliament, Nick McBride, with the Minister of Health, Chris Picton, and between our council and the Naracoorte-Lucindale Council around the health services available at Canalpin, Tintinara and Lucindale. So I will probably elaborate in my report in the next month in that respect. Councillor Roundtree.
On the 5th of February, the meeting with the Minister for Education and the Tailem Bend Primary School.
So, yes, thank you. I just had to remember what it was. So we had a Zoom meeting with the Minister around what options and what formats in the future would childcare take. I think we're talking about, from birth till 5 in effect, and the changes that are out there now and how that may play out in our district. It was a very broad discussion on it.
So through Mayor, then the meeting on the 14th, which was the integrated childcare model in Tailem Bend, is that the same thing?
Yeah, along a similar line, at a more local level, just to see what models may be possible there.
Were there any possibilities?
For you, Mayor. No, this is just exploring what might happen or what was available. We talked with the Minister at the Country Cabinet last year, and with the changes to the rebates for childcare, we know that childcare is lacking in most of our communities. It will stymie growth into the future, the state government is moving towards compulsory year 3 kindergarten. So we thought there was an opportunity with all those changes from birth through to schooling that we could talk with the minister about, and if he was interested in a pilot of some sort, that we would be keen to be part of that. It's very, very early days in the discussion, but it all started with us looking at the gaps in childcare across the district.
Just through you, Mayor, just further, you said compulsory kindy?
Year 3 it's moving to in 20,
Kindy's 4, but it's optional.
I think it's 25. Now, it may not be compulsory. Kelly's nodding her head at me.
Allow.
Year 3, 3-year-olds, yep.
The answer is that they're moving towards early childhood education at the age of 3. This is just very preliminary to see what would be possible within the facilities, within the structures, and within, I suppose, which federal or state government department might be the funder of it, would be fair to say. So that's where we've been working in that area. Okay, I just might mention on the 17th, I went to the St Columcille's. I think I've got the presentation or the words spelling out of the Catholic Church of the 100-year anniversary celebration at Tunnerman. It was a lovely function. It was a beautiful day, which you may work out I would have enjoyed the best cream puffs this side of Murray Bridge, I'm told, even if they were from over the river at Gerbil. I might just mention on the 26th we did meet, and I'll be aware, with representatives of various government departments around traffic diversions due to accidents on, in this case, the Dukes Highway in principle. We'll continue to work with the departments there. There seemed to be that they probably all felt it was always perhaps someone else's principal problem. But one thing that did come out of it is there will probably be, this is from a departmental personnel at the DIT, a new standard coming federally from the federal government around school bus stops. One of the important things that come out of that. Since I'm on roads, and I know it's my report, but press releases only come out a few hours ago talking about state highways that will be funded 50-50 with the federal government as a safety upgrade. Across the state, there's nearly 70 million in that funding package, of which over 36 million has been allocated to the Mallee Highway from the junction over the railway bridge as far as Geranium. So finally seeing some work in our area on a more state-funded road, shall we say. But very pleasing to see that, and I thank the Minister for that. Has there anyone else got any questions? Okay, I move on to Councillor Maidment. You want to add anything to your report?
Excuse me. No, thank you, Mayor. Through you, I think it's fairly
Fairly
self-explanatory.
straightforward. I know
Yeah,
you've
pretty
had a
light on though, I
sick
will
leave, so
admit.
we're getting there with you. Okay. Deputations, item petitions, I have none. Do I? No. Deputations, I have none. Public question time, I don't believe I've got anyone that's nominated for that, so we'll move on. 10.1 decision report, councillors, community grant sponsorships and funding policy. Councillors, we've spent many, I think years, it'd be fair to say, working this policy forward and backwards and trying to include groups we think are worthy, others, and we've ended up at this point today where we can adopt it after public consultation. I might just get the CEO just to explain how this plays out financially in case there's any misunderstandings.
So you'll see that there's a line in there, councillors. Thank you, Mayor. Two things have happened here. One is we thought this policy would come in this financial year, so there has been a budget line to reflect that, which we haven't had to use and which we will now move to next year because if it becomes policy, we can fund it. The second thing is that it is also a combination of raking up, because it's not, some of these things are already paid for in various ways and in ad hoc ways across the council area. So it's a matter of raking up some of the, not some, but all of them that relate to this policy now, and recognising that there will be other monies that's already been allocated for this budget, and we can allocate again for next budget to accommodate where we know that there will be extra required.
So, Councillor Roundtree?
I'm happy to move it, but I also have some questions.
You can move it. I might just look for a seconder first. Councillor Bland is the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you can move, speak to your motion and ask the questions. Whatever order you like.
Just a couple of questions. So confirming that elected members will have the opportunity to review the weighting, in particular community needs and community benefits. I feel very strongly that that needs a lot of our input. So that will be the case when approving grants.
So the grants will have that weighting system that we had feedback from all of you on that. That will be now built in so that it's transparent, and we will still bring the grants back to you for final approval.
And the second thing is having a read of some of the comments that came back. Do we need to elaborate on examples or an explanation for what cultural grants look like as opposed to individual sports grants? So they're fairly similar, very specific as a sports grant. That was quite clear, but we weren't clear, and it was brought up in one of the comments, that what is a cultural grant? What does it mean? Do we need to provide more detail?
Through you, Chair, and I'm just looking at Kelly at the back, she may have a view, but I would say that it's probably the traditional understanding of the word cultural grants. We don't get many requests for that, but, Kelly, would you like to?
Come to the speaker, please, Kelly. You can use that one on the corner. I reckon it'll be live.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so contained within the policies, there are explanations, contained within the procedures, there are outlines as to what cultural grants elaborates, and that could be music, that could be arts, and it's not defined as cultural in the way I think you're thinking, which might be Indigenous or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. So it's more
Broader definition.
yes, the broader
Yeah, and I think-
definition. So it could be, arts and music and those sorts of things. So if someone was quite a talented musician and was invited to perhaps perform at a state or national level, that's where that program would sit. So traditionally, this has been from a sporting perspective, so state, federal and international opportunities that are perhaps provided to sporting representatives. So this now expands and includes art and music and those sorts of things that sit in that area.
So thank you for that through there. It just wasn't Indigenous. I think cultural could also be, we've got a very multicultural society. I felt it could be elaborated, go further. So thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions? Or I'll go to the seconder. I'm going to go to the seconder.
No problems with it, fine.
Thank you.
Trial.
Mr. Mayor.
Arthur, you want to speak for or against it, or question? Question or?
Yeah, I've
thought?
got a couple of questions. First of all, I'm surprised that this has been tabled today, because in discussions, as we had the discussions, it's been out for public consultation, it hasn't come back to us. Because one of the things that we did say when we were discussing it, that the water and halls issue should be separate to the community grants. They should be separate. They're more as the CEO has just said, they're virtually an operational, part of an operational budget. And I just wonder if we know what we're actually voting for here. For example, I just find lost it here. The water provisions, for example, 6,500 kilolitres per annum. Can anyone explain to me what that's for?
6,500 kilolitres is considered by Sandful, I believe, to be a reasonable amount to keep a oval in good condition.
So that's for each oval,
Two
for
ovals.
example?
For
So
the-
that's
for the-
$18,000 per oval.
Up to, potentially.
It's $18,000 per oval.
Potentially. Keep in mind that the other three ovals in this council area are internally funded by this council, be it they bore at Tintinara or a mixture of wastewater and river water at Tailem Bend and Menengi. And I think last meeting, I think from memory, we were told we had some repairs at Tailem Bend, which we did. So there is not a no cost to the watering of the other ovals. The second part I'd add, in particularly in Canalpin's case being an SA Water one, is that figure is probably good for us to build leverage for a grant to bring a different source of water in. Very obvious now what the cost of watering an oval is.
I've got no problems with supplying monies to help water the Oval. I have got problems with the amount that's going to be allocated, and there is no limit on it. Now, if you remember, sometime when we had a relieving CEO here, he mentioned that a particular oval down south had a SANFL going on it, and they went to the council and said, dude, so they watered it what they wanted, and it cost $18,000 for the quarter. So there's got to be a limit on what
Well,
we
well,
can
there
do.
is, it's 6,500 kilolitres.
Well, that's a hectare of lucerne seed, of lucerne, hay and seed. There's no way in the world you need that much.
Well, that's up to. Now, I'd
My
imagine that
my thing would be that they present their quarterly bills to the council at the end of each financial year, and we pay 75% of them.
well, that would be,
There's still got to be some trigger on what they can spend. And as far as the bowling greens, where did we get that figure from?
Kelly, please.
I believe that was a motion passed quite a few years ago, so I would have to go back and dig that information up
That's
for
how
you,
much they were
councillor Arthur.
paid.
Correct.
But I've looked back from the figures that we got from the Canalpin Bowling Club some years ago, and they used over 1,000 kilolitres, so that would be $3,000.
So we've capped, so the recommendation is that we cap it at $1,000 for the bowling clubs. And the sporting clubs is capped at 6,500
Kilolitres.
kilolitres, I was going to say gigalitres. In terms of capping that, I think we may have to reflect back on the presentation that was put forward, because there are other sporting clubs that use in excess of 6,500 kilolitres. So if you to cap that, that may have impact on other sporting clubs.
Were we referring to Tintinara there?
No,
Yes,
I
we would be.
think
And,
and maybe
and I
Menanke
hope
as
you
well.
do realise that the council drags through that meter water for the roads.
Yes, just yeah, careful.
That was going to be my question through.
Your
Mayor.
question, councillor, around
Yeah,
for years.
um,
Got a question?
it is a question. Do we know how much water the Tintinara Oval uses, for instance? Can that be a bit of a benchmark as to what we might use? So what does that one use?
For you, Mayor, she has looked at every sporting facility across the district within an inch of its life. And remember, we gave you a briefing
Mhm.
on all of this detail.
Mhm.
And this is probably the fairest and soundest way of making sure that each sporting club across the district had fair and equitable access to the funding where they don't have access to council water.
Thank you.
Other people want to speak for or against? Councillor Peach?
I'd like to concur with councillor Arthur's initial comment that we did ask for this to be split into two policies, as they are two different things. And again, would have been good to see the community comments and feedback before we got to the meeting agenda regarding it. But that was quite clear, I think, from the chamber, that we thought it should be two policies when it was discussed at the time.
No, there's 3 public comments, councillors. You can take it either way, whether you thought it should be a separate policy or.
I have a question.
I think it's, you know, all encompassing on what we give out discretionarily to community groups in this community.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, part of the idea with this was to simplify it. And for a community group looking at the document, looking for funding under the old stream, this is now a much bigger document to go through.
And I can assure you, all councils struggle in this area. I spoke to some other mayors. It is public money. You know,
No, I'm saying by splitting the document into the two different
Yeah.
areas, it clarifies and consolidates what we're talking about.
I'll take that as in. Councillor Bland?
I guess my question then is through you, Mr. Mayor, to the chamber is, do they want to add a point 3 onto that subject to councillor Arthur's, sorry, around his approval?
Sorry, you need to tell me what you want.
I'm just asking whether through you, whether the councillors would like a third point to the motion, deal with the concern, which could be done and still dealt with today,
So the concern is,
in relation to the division, rather than having both in there.
you would like, you think that the policy should be in two parts?
Well, I'm just saying it could actually be done now if we wanted to. You don't have to come back unless.
Councillors, another way of doing it is, and which is I'm sure Kelly's already started to think about, is we will have a fact sheet for each of the different components in this policy. I think when we had the briefing, we did talk about the splitting of the policy, but at the end of the day, I think one of us, and I can't remember who, this is an all-encompassing policy about the things that are discretionary for the community. It's their one place to go to, and we will have a suite of fact sheets or question and answers, or however we normally do it. And Tammy will work with each of the community groups, so they will probably not have to access it at any time anyway, because Tammy will be working with them. And if there is an anomaly that pops up, which does from time to time in a policy, then we'll address that with you as it comes up.
Mr. Mayor, another question, if I may. The $52,000 identified, does that include the $25,000 of grant funding, or is that new? Just the way if I'm through, the way the CEO
Community grant.
described it was that it was bringing together different pots, some of which are already in use. Is that including the
So
25,000?
the community grants amount is still separate to that.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to see what the community grant sponsorship money is always worked out every 12 months at budget time. So how much is it envisaged that will be?
One round still for next year, unless the councillors have a view that it should be two, but we were working on the premise that last year you wanted one round, we're doing one round again this year.
The policy says it will be one round.
Yeah, that's fine.
September.
That's, I've asked for the year. Doesn't matter how many times you want to do it.
No, well, the
We used to
policy's-
do it in two
Yeah, well,
batches.
we-
So it'll be-
we've shown a preference for doing it once a year. The policy is reflecting we do it once a year.
Yeah, that's fine. But once a year it used to be $50,000 split in two. So now going to be
25.
Well, it'll be one call for
25.
25, as this year, I think. Kelly, please, is this?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so the round that we're about to conclude has $30,000, which was approved in the budget process last year. And I believe we've actually put up 50,000 for one round, which will be discussed at the budget process.
So you're surmising this will be 50 plus 52.
Correct.
Thank you.
But that will still go to budget. That will still go to budget
Ab-
discussion.
Absolutely, that hasn't been discussed by you yet.
Still on questions or debate? Well, I'm going to ask the mover to close.
Well,
Hang on. He was only just ahead of you. Councillor Arthur.
well, Mr. Mayor, you're asking us to approve an additional fund in the budget.
Asking you
Approve an
to
additional
consider a
fund,
process as a matter of policy.
52,000 commencing required to support the water subsidies,
Allowances.
for 24-25.
So this brings together several policies that have been dispersed across the budget. That's why you see that figure. So they would move from the other figures buried in other parts of the budget to this more public figure.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, what of that figure is new money and what is existing in currently allocated budget figures?
So there is no new money, as I said originally. We had the money earmarked this year already. You can say that's new money if you want, because we didn't use it, because we thought the policy would be in place for this year. It took longer than we expected for a whole variety of reasons. We will earmark the same amount of money for next year. So there is no, depends on your definition of new money, but the money that was earmarked this year will be in the budget next year to cover off. And also the raking up, we already pay water subsidies, allowances
Allowances, please.
to various sporting bodies across the district. We pay Canalpin Hub some money. So it's really just about bringing those all together. There is nothing in this document that we didn't brief you on at the briefing in terms of how you wanted to do it.
This consolidates and makes more consistent our allowances, in particular, around things like toilets across the district that are not the ones that we manage fully. What this process does. Councillor Bland with
So
a
just-
question, I trust.
Here's a question, just for clarification then, May. is that in the next budget, we will still have an opportunity to, subject to budget monies available, to have a final discussion as to whether we can meet this policy.
I'll up to the
It's
elected
up to the
members.
chamber. Thank you. I just wanted the clarity around that because the policy says X, but if we don't have the finances, we may have to trim any part of our budget, not just this one.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any other questions or people speaking for or against, please? Councillor Roundtree. Closed. So councillors, recommendation as far as I know remains in the 2 points as it reads in the agenda. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? So the motion is carried with councillors Peach and Arthur voting against the motion. Councillors Bland, Burra, Roundtree, Maidman and Qualman voting for the motion. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Number 2, Coorong Visitor Experience Master Plan. Councillors?
Sorry, Mr Mayor,
Yes,
may I be excused from the meeting for 2 minutes? Apparently my car's lights are on.
for that reason, yes. Councillors, there's a long report here, but the recommendation is that council endorse the Coorong Visitor Experience Plan. How many years of work? I'm looking at the CEOs, a considerable amount of 2 or 3 years of work, 3 years in this process, led by Ju. Someone move that way, please. Got a question? Yep.
If we, at some point down in the future, want to modify, add, delete any component of that, what is the process?
Through you, Mayor, I suppose we see this document more in the light of a strategic plan. I'm going to say I can't imagine what you would want to remove because you can either do some of these things or not do some of these things. None of it is putting any burden on the chamber to do anything, but it is a document that we will be able to use in discussion with grants, with the state government for various things. It also gives us an opening to have a discussion with the 2 other councils who were involved, which was Alexandrina and Kingston, where we have common boundaries around the Coorong. So in a sense, it's a strategic document rather than a operational one.
So follow-up question on that is, I notice there's another jetty potential in this document. I will assume that if it's going to Raucan, then we won't be responsible for that jetty. It would be due else's problem.
Any action that comes out of this document would be a report to council as a specific project. It will be a staged, we will look for opportunities for grants for the various bits that are in this, but none of it will ever be done without a report to council to say this is part of a project that fits neatly under this. We think we can get a grant for it. So if there was a building of a jetty, there would be a whole lot of activity around who owns it, who looks after it, who's paying for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Bland is the mover of the recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Roundtree, you are?
Yeah, and I have a question as well.
Certainly.
So where it talks about, it says within the Coorong District Council and the scope of the Coorong Visitor Experience Plan, the trail will travel from Wellington East to Salt Creek, and aimed at experienced trail walkers and casual recreational users. Is that original Coorong Trail that we
Trail.
talked about?
Yep.
And I know from time to time that's been in and out of the budget. Do we currently have anything allocated towards it, or are we required to?
No, we're not required to. We have no plans to put anything in the budget next year for the Coorong Murray, that trail. Again, if there was something to be built as a specific infrastructure project, it would come as a standalone. But this would give the impetus or the leverage to get some grant funding for it, because this will, at the end of the day, will be a minister endorsed document from Ju.
It's a nice looking document. Yep. Very good.
Okay, I'm still on questions or? Want to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question. And hearing the conversation was going on, joining the dots. It just says financial implications, yes, in line with the budget allocations. This is a variable type one, is it? Expense to the
There's
council?
no budget allocation, there's no
Yes.
implication, councillor.
Oh,
At this stage, there is none.
okay, all right, I'll go with that.
Just through you, Mayor, we paid $15,000 to be in partnership with Due for this. That came out of, I think, the 2021 budget as our contribution for this plan to be developed. That's the only contribution we've made. And as I mentioned earlier, if there is a specific plan or infrastructure project or any sort of project, to be honest, that would fit within this plan, it would come back as a specific project, either in a budget discussion or as a standalone during the year.
Thank you, sounds better.
So this is the first time this plan has been revised, livened up since what, the late 1980s or something, we believe. One of the first things the CEO identified was that plan was extremely old. Now, perhaps when we started this process, the pool of funding that may have been available through state and federal governments was wider than is today, but you never know, our luck might change. Anyone else? Councillor Bland, you may close if you wish.
Closed.
Thank you. So the recommendation is the council endorse the Coorong Visitor Experience Plan. All those in favour? Those against, I'm putting that as carried unanimously, please. Number 3, Disability Access and Inclusion Plan Progress Report as required under the Act, I presume. There's a recommendation that council receive and note the report. Questions, or someone move that way, please?
Question?
Councillor Bland's got a question to start with.
And I know that this isn't necessarily in our gambit, but it does connect to our facilities such as football, etc. And that is the access for disability and where we see our responsibility for accessing things like shop fronts, etc. in an ageing community.
Jen, through you, Mayor, and I'm looking at both directors here. My understanding is that generally it's the owner of the shop, but if we are doing work in the vicinity, we'll upgrade that footpath. We will only bring it up to code or standard if we are doing work there. We don't generally retrofit things because that's a budgetary expense that we would not be able to meet.
I'll add to that, Mr. Mayor. Remember that the key criteria is that no work occurring, there isn't actually. There may be a moral trigger.
It's just,
There may be not a legal trigger.
So my-
Council to step.
so if I ask a follow-up question on that, if council had a complaint in relation to a shop front because they couldn't access due to a small step, etc., what is council's action?
To pass that on to the building owner for their
We
interest.
would take that up and pass it on from a
Yes.
council.
And we have done that. But as the CEO said, if there's something that we can do that's practical and achievable to assist in that on our own land, then maybe we'll look at that. And sometimes it needs the council and the building owner to be well. Take it normal. New activity. Development application.
Just clarity for me. Thank you very much.
Do we need a mover?
Question, Mr Mayor.
Yep, councillor Peach with a question.
5.2, investigate what services council can support to build capacity of young people living with disability to ensure their participation in decision making. I note that that was not done or deferred with a further date of 2023. Where's that at?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. There are some things in this document that we haven't got to yet. That is one of them. And I'm looking at Kelly again, who's put a hand up.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and I do apologise, that 2023 should actually read 2024, so that was a typo error on my behalf.
Okay, I'm still looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Roundtree and Cornwall are the mover and seconder. Any other questions around, we receive and note the report as required? There is none. Mover, close. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 4, 2024 Local Government Association Roads and Works Conference, which is this year. Handel.
Mr Mayor, could I nominate councillors O'Hara and Arthur? Yeah, with them?
Yeah, you can. You can. It's given it's close to home. I think 3 councillors went last year. Is that correct? Councillors Qualman, O'Hara and Arthur. So we've got 2 councillors nominated at this stage. Councillor Roundtree, you want to go?
I thought, Councillor Coleman might be interested as well, seeing he enjoyed it last time. So if it's close to home, then if he would like to go, I'd nominate him as well.
3 councillors there. It's probably, is it 1 or 2 days? Sorry, I didn't.
Have we seen them?
May well travel home for this one. Some of us might.
It's 2.5 minutes.
2.5, so we'll see how that plays out. Just while I'm on this subject, one of the things I've learned on SAROC is the EP Local Government Association done a lot of work on unsealed road construction standards, and understand that some of that technical knowledge might be brought to the Murraylands Riverlands process as well. So, but this is very important, I think, as a networking thing about learning about other people with good ideas. We don't have all the good ones. Hope we've got some of them. Anyone else? I've got 3 councillors there at the stage that have been nominated. I don't know if you want me to go. When is it? I probably should go.
That was a given that you would go. Or other was sort of, I thought, okay, go.
Well, I don't know if it is a given. You go, you better say so.
Inclusive.
It's an
Mate.
important one. It's very significant
Yeah,
for
I-
our region.
I know. It is very significant given current budgetary issues and road funding, certainly is. And, yeah. All right, so we're up to 4 councillors. If everyone's happy with that, someone move that recommendation with the 4 names in, please.
So moved.
Councillor Peach is the mover. Is there a seconder? For Roundtree, is there any further discussion around that? Councillor Qualman.
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment. I attend with a previous director and previous elected member, Councillor Glenys Taylor, then in the previous term, and had a handoff, and I found it very enlightening. And we drove down every day, only 45 minutes from Taylor Bench, so it's no big drama in the transport side of things.
Okay, anyone else? Being that, councillor Peach, you'll close and
Close.
put the motion number 4 with those 4 councillors' names. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 5, the 2024 Local Government Association Conference and Ordinary General Meeting. Councillors, it's a 1-day event, I think this year, isn't it? From memory?
Before May.
This is the ordinary meeting of the association, not the annual general meeting. It is in May, and given it's in May, I'd really like at least 1 or 2 councillors to nominate in case it actually eventually rains in my life.
I'm harvesting and babysitting.
No, you're out of it. So, looking for other volunteers. This one may involve some discussion around the constitution of the local government, or how we're trying to amend that. There is no one?
Mr Mayor, with this being the case that you can't attend,
Well, if
Whoever else
there's
did,
another
but-
councillor, I believe I can hand on my voting entitlement to another councillor if they're in attendance.
Don't you want to go, Matt?
I didn't say that. I just said it, with any luck,
Seeding.
on the 24th of May,
Yeah.
I'm a farmer still, I might be involved. Well,
I have a question.
Yeah.
in relation to that, I'm happy to go, but subject to, I just need to check a couple of dates, maybe away. But if there's another backup, I'm more than happy to step back.
Councillor Arthur, you,
Yeah.
okay, so we put councillors Arthur and Blank,
I worked the voting out now.
work the voting system out. You worked out our entitlement is 1. You worked out you don't want to be the last one on the screen.
Get in trouble.
Name comes up.
A-
if you haven't
and-
voted.
And the voting entitlement thing may come up in this OGM as a discussion point, I might add. So the councillors Bland and Arthur are the other two at this stage, unless anyone else is keen. I'm not seeing anyone rushing to this one. Okay, that's the recommendation. Can someone move that way, please? Councillor Coleman, mover. Seconder. Councillor O'Hara, he rushed in. You got to get someone else to go. Any discussion? There is none. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That one's carried unanimously, please. Number 6, instruments of delegation aerodrome operations. This is a statutory delegated process, I believe.
You may, most delegations come through with some sort of template arrangements. This one didn't have one. They now have a template. I'll let the director talk a little bit more about this. There is no changes. It's just a change in format, is my understanding. Is that right, Miles?
Correct. Point is that in September last year, when our full delegations were reviewed, this wasn't available, so hence it's with you now.
Questions?
We still, this is the pay to be part of it, but we still have to, which we have sent some fellas down to do the course, checking the aerodrome out and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
Any other questions? Mover, please. Councillor Arthur's the mover. The seconder? The Roundtree? Councillors?
Fairly simple. Not self-explanatory, not
Anyone else
simple.
for or against? Thank you, councillor. You'll close.
He closes.
He's no, he's closing it. I'm going to put the motion as it is, that recommendation. It's quite a large motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 7, adoption of flag flying policy. Number 7, there's a recommendation. Councillors, does someone wish to move that, or someone got a question
I'll move.
first? 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to work out which one are you moving, or what are we doing?
I'll move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Peach is the mover. Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Councillor Arthur, you miss out. Anyone got any questions around that? Been through the consultation process, so I think. Councillor O'Hara.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I haven't really got a question on it, but I just wonder, in adopting this policy, we are excluding some groups who might want to fly their flag. And I just wonder if it's worth the hassle. Or is it easier to just let them fly their flag for a couple of days? Yeah,
Worthy question, which has been pushed around for 6 or 8 months.
yeah.
Perhaps from the mayor's point of view, the previous mayor had the discretion to decide. That removes that joy or risk from the mayor's role.
I understand that, but I just wonder if it's worth creating an argument over it.
I'm leaving that to the elected members.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions or comments? There
Sir,
is
if I
not.
can speak to, as
You'll
move.
speak as the mover at this stage, yes.
I'd just like to note, thanks for the pickup on 6.1.2. I did have that down to modify today. So that was, it was just the order of precedence, from the national guidelines, was picked up and, implemented. The only other query I had was the wording from left to right to the person facing the Princess Highway, but I think that's okay in the situation, given that not all the flag sites do face that way.
Sorry, can you say that again?
So 6.1.2 has been modified from the draft that was distributed because the national flags of other nations visiting dignitaries take precedence over state and other flags. So that was picked up. And The, from left to right to a person facing the Princess Highway makes sense in the context that it's in, but I just, did wonder that, given that we have other flag sites, so.
Yes, we have at least 3 officers, so that's where we would fly the flags. How you blokes going with that technical difficulty you got there?
He's trying to work it out, I can't work it out.
Well, let Councillor Roundtree
Yeah,
get
hang on.
the pizzazz for that process.
Simply.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against 8, as in the recommendation here? Sorry, 7, I'm on. 7-1.
Sure.
If there's no one else while they sort that out, you can still vote. I'm going to put the recommendation, if Councillor Peach, you will close. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Councillors, thank you. We move on to 8, site leases and permits for RA. As you know, we've been working through this for a while also, in terms of public consultation. There's a recommendation there, councillors. This is in relation to the 2 of the 3 at Menengi and Tailem Bend for 5 years. Can I move that way, please?
Mr. Mayor.
For Roundtree, I'm going to take a mover and a seconder first. I think Councillor Bland's going to be the seconder. You've got to give me the mover a chance to speak.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yes.
And it's just a generic one. When there's a power blackout, are the EV stations affected if we lose power in our district? And I only ask because they could be stuck there for days.
Not a battery.
They're not a battery.
Right off
So
the main,
pa-
as far as we understand.
Okay, yep.
Same as everyone else will be, Councillor.
All right, interesting.
Yeah. Councillor Bland, you're the seconder. You want to speak?
I'm fine, no
You're
question.
fine for the moment. Councillor Arthur, you had a question.
Yes, well, I wanted to put another clause in there that council will charge an annual lease fee of $250 per annum. Because I don't believe that we should be giving council property to commercial body free of charge. Now, please don't say they're a non-for-profit, so they don't charge. If that's the case, we'll have to reimburse all the sporting bods or non-for-profits who have been charged for the use of their sporting grounds over a period of time.
Can we, if you've got the mover and seconder are happy with that, can we even accept that license and licenses act?
So, through you, Mayor, the only thing the RAA is waiting for us to do now is to bring back to say that the use of the land has been approved under the Community Land Management, which is this part of the process. That's the only thing that they're waiting for now. They're not expecting us to come back and change the rules at this point in the conversation.
Now I have a follow-up question then. In relation to the site management, who will keep it tidy?
That's their responsibility.
That's their responsibility, councillor.
So having said that, there is opportunity then for us to pass on any costs that we incur because they haven't necessarily fulfilled their responsibility.
Through you, Mayor, we would work as we would with any third party around the expectations that we would have as council on the level of tidiness.
Thank you.
Councillor Peach.
I have a question. At what point in this document, the final lease document, come back to councillors?
The lease document has been signed. And as I said, the only thing that is waiting is the actual community land use. Because then the last part of it, and if everybody came back and said, no, we didn't want it, that would then be a trigger to say we don't proceed with the lease. But as I said, the lease has been signed, and that was about before Christmas. And so we only now we were waiting for this part of it to be finished in terms of community engagement.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, when the initial lease document was circulated to councillors, a number of concerns were raised with it and asked to be picked up. Copy. Have we seen that final copy?
We can circulate it.
So
Don't know, councillor.
Why, are- through Mr Mayor, why are we being asked to endorse the leasing of community land after the fact?
No. The current lease, the current contract has a clause that says if the community came back and said they didn't want it, then that was a trigger to say that the contract was null and void, basically. So we were waiting for the last part of the puzzle, which was the community engagement around the community land. And as you can see, there were two parts. We didn't settle which land was being actually used. Meningie had the first tranche, which was a different spot around it. So it is, and this has been part of our conversation with you around the RAA for the whole time. We've signed the document. We were waiting for the actual community to say they were happy with it because we had a responsibility to do that. RAA knew that. So once this is now finished, basically the contract continues as is.
You're effectively endorsing that the completion of the community consultation around this as required. I think it'd be fair to say when the people who envisaged this electric vehicle charging stations, they didn't probably understand the full provisions of the Local Government Act in terms of land use, land changes.
And through you, Mayor, every council that has had relationships with the RAA, these are the same things we've been going through. Some of it land needs a consultation, some of it doesn't, as you can see with the Canalpin one. So it varies depending on the land tenure.
I hope you got a question or you.
I have got a question.
Yes.
So we've had people comment about why we've put them in the places we've put them. And I think we probably need to do more to explain that they're there because that is where the power is. And I think that's got to be really driven home. It was no other reason. But that leads to an interesting second point, is that if these are the only places in our towns that can have these electric vehicle charging stations, our scope for expansion is incredibly limited. Because if the one at Tailem Bend is already all full now, then our ability to expand in Tailem Bend is out of the question unless SA Power Networks significantly upgrade their infrastructure to accommodate more electric charging stations. So I guess I'm looking for a bit of clarification. Is that your understanding of how this process works? Because if there are other places we could have put them,
So
and we needed to have
Let's
considered it.
just clarify.
exclusively.
This is not we've put them, they're putting them with our concurrence. And they have decided on these sites because they're going to where the power is.
That's what I understood.
So I would envisage that this is an interim position being adopted until commercial reality takes over and the commercial people take up the options of this. I don't envisage any incorporated body like RAA going on and providing these infinitum.
Other companies might, but if we don't
Other
have the
companies
power-
might. This is part of a state and federal, at least state-funded rollout process behind the scenes.
Through you, Mayor, if there's been a lot of criticism about the Tailem Bend one and the distance it is from that station to facilities like toilets, the bakery, whatever, it's a long way. And if you've got children, you've got to cross the Duke's Highway to get your kids and your dog or whatever to the other side. If how we're selling it at the moment is that this is the only spot in Tailem Bend.
No, we're not selling it at all.
Well, that's how, well, that was my understanding, and I'm not sure about
But
my
this, you know,
elected members, that this was the only place we could put it,
You got
or
two-
they could put it.
that was the preferred place based on the availability of lots of electricity. Also within the confinements of the road reserve or the access, and my understanding from memory was that the access had to be at 90 degrees to the curb.
That's through you, Mayor. There would be nothing to stop the pub if they wanted to put one on their land. So commercial opportunities will take precedence at some point. RAA are filling a gap in the market until the market takes care of itself.
Government sponsoring
Yeah.
the
Same thing.
RAA.
Same
But
thing.
if a private enterprise wanted to put one in, don't they need to have access to the same level of power as what RAA have been?
Well, that's their issue,
That's
isn't
a
it?
commercial decision they would make.
Depends on what type of charger as well, and varying type of charger. So solar chargers don't need as much power supply. I think it'd be, infrastructure network, more EV charging throughout the district. I think probably the better thing to do is and see what the answer. I believe you know, part of the formula relates to the fast charger network that REA are putting out through the state.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor O'Hara, yep.
That's exactly what it is. This position is for a hot charge, what they call a hot charge. 20 minutes, you've fully recharged your car. You can put it anywhere else and take 40 minutes. But this is for a hot charge, what they call a hot charge. Right.
Good. And just I might add at Tail and Ben, we say it's a long way from the toilet. It's actually not, because if you go down the staircase, you can very quickly
Depending on
hit the
which one
toilet.
you use. Tesla now have got two down.
Yep. And I'm
Steve?
sure there'll be new technology, and I'm sure within the next 3 to 5 years, there'll be large amount of change.
Through you, Mayor, my concern was about how we're selling it to the community and why we've put them where they are. And part of that understanding was this was the spot chosen due to the availability of the power that they
Appropriate power.
need.
In Meningi's case, if I'm correct, is appropriate power. It's because we did have a preferred site, which probably would have answered a lot of those negative questions that were in there. But we've gone to a different site purely because of appropriate power,
Now,
certainly.
and if we recall, we're actually getting more of these than we perhaps were initially offered.
Mm.
I'm going to go to Councillor Qualman next, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I concur with councillor Roundtree. But thank you for your explanation, and I think we just got to get the information or the correct what's really going on. I have heard from people and concerned that you know, you'll get a big pile of cars there wanting to charge up and on such a nice little lookout facility there. But I see this only has 2 station ones, so that may help. I would hope then further down the track, if there's any expansion, and then with technology, we'd use some other site that even if RAA were to expand, they would still have to negotiate with us, correct? And hopefully with technology, we could have probably in a more appropriate position with electricity, 3-phase power in, say, near the railway station or something in Railway Terrace, more suitably situated
Let me,
close to businesses.
In my observation of the charging stations that are in the public domain at Murray Bridges in the last 3 months, they've definitely picked up their use considerably. Councillor Arthur?
Yeah, I just, I'd like to find out why we are allowing the one at the Canalpin to take up our footpath. You know, if I park my car on that footpath, our man could book me, yet you've put a charging station on the footpath.
There's no footpath there. I think it's a road-related area, I think, Councillor.
Well, it is a footpath area, even
Well,
though
it
it's
could
not a
be.
designated. When's a footpath a footpath?
The road-related area till it's a former footpath.
So we haven't got many footpaths in our area.
No,
then, if
but I
that-
think it's on the opposite side of the street to what you're talking. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I suppose we could have a piece of land which people may walk on, or we could have a piece of land where people are stopping in our area, even if they are charging
Well,
up
that means they have to
at their own expense. So
go through there.
the issue remains of the choice of sites was principally driven by I suppose, the cheapest access to lots of power. That's what was chiefly driving this at this stage. Now, we can debate that, but we're just a provider of perhaps the locations in this scenario.
You know, it's dictated by the availability
Of power.
of sufficient power.
Correct.
And there are certain towns in the area at the present moment where virtually no expansion can go on without a major upgrade
That's right.
from SA Power Network. And SA Power Network now charge for that.
They've always charged for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions or debate? Had questions and never quite got a debate, but anyway. Councillor Roundtree and Councillor Bland are the mover and seconder. They appear to want to stay with the motion they're with. There's no one else. We'll close.
Yes.
Okay, so it is in those 2 parts, councillors, a recommendation 8, both points 1 and 2 are in this motion. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 9, Community Land Management Plan, Parkland at Meningie. Now, this is in relation to that within a different part of the Local Government Act. Looking at the directors. Miles, do you just want to quickly explain why we do this part 2?
Well, through the chair, in order to enable resolution that was just passed, we need to prepare a new community land management plan for that site to allow for the EV chargers to exist.
Part of the act that was brought in 20, 25 years ago, wasn't it? Community land, part of. I'll move that way, please. Councillor O'Hara. Seconder. Councillor Coleman. Any discussion? None. You've closed, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 10 is the same one in relation to Tail and Bend. Is there a mover? Councillor Qualman is the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland. Any discussion? Being none, thank you for closing. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's also carried unanimously. Number 11, Miles, or who would like to speak to this just initially so we understand what we're doing here, please? 11-1, CEO.
So I'll start the process and then I'll look to Miles. Remember, councillors, sorry, Mayor, to you, we brought a report to council, a debenture loan of 1.6 million, and there were some conversations about when the interest started. We then went back and talked to our financiers, who then said, why don't you apply for a CAD again? So we are now putting up a report to apply for a CAD, which in your terminology is basically like an overdraft, which gives us more flexibility because you'll see an answer later on in the council documents that says if we are to go for a debenture loan, the interest starts from the day we actually activate the loan, the 1.6. It doesn't have the facility to actually draw down, and interest starts as you draw down. The CAD is always more flexible for us, but when we first got advice from them, they said, do a debenture loan. Now we've gone back to them with the questions that you asked us in chamber. They've said now a CAD is probably a better way to go. It does tend to be a bit of a moving feast in terms of their advice, and I'm not sure it's over until we actually put in our application and we get a signed document back. But at this point in time, the advice is that we go for a CAD, which provides us with much more flexibility, both in terms of when we use it, we only have to draw down when we need it, and the interest, which is the cost to council, only applies when you start to draw down. Of course, the CAD interest rate is slightly higher than a fixed.
And councillors, I understand that we're probably not going to activate the full amount of that regardless this financial year. Two large projects in our council area probably won't be done in the financial year we're in, 23-24. They will roll through. So particularly Carcoma Road, but I understand will be also the Canalpin toilets. Will unlikely to have any great amount of money spent in this financial year at this stage due to the funding process we're in.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to ask a question. In the income and expenditure summary that we've got further, we've budgeted this year for a deficit of $522,000. Now, the estimated forecast budget is for $1.1 million deficit. There has been an adjustment of 600,000 on depreciation.
Correct. You're correct,
Now,
councillor.
all of a sudden, and one of the things that I've asked for and has been is the cash flow. As I said, at the end of last year, we had $2.5 million in cash, only because we got $3.1 million on the same day for work this year, which gave a false figure for last year. Now, what is going to be the actual figure if we're borrowing this to pay for works that are nothing to do with the depreciation? What is the estimated deficit for this financial year?
Through you, Mayor, all those things you've said are correct, councillor. We did get the injection of fags at the last minute, 100%, and that has been transparent and part of the process since we started. The 500,000 deficit is what we've always said we will have. We think it might be slightly better as we go through for BR3, but we'll wait and see before we get too joyful. This thing that has changed the deficit is the increase in valuation. So at some point, and we'll bring in at BR3, formally is the increase in the depreciation, which will change the deficit. So what you've said is actually correct.
Okay, well, why are we borrowing 1.6 when we only need 1.1? you're only estimating a 1.1 deficit, not 1.6.
It's not through you, it's not to cover the deficit, it is to ensure we have cash flow
Cash flow.
to pay the bills.
Well, looking at,
But a depreciable budget, a book budget, and then we've got a cash.
yeah, looking at the monthly cash flows, and you've still got one more lot of rates to come in June.
But through you, Mayor, we may not draw down, if the cash flow works out, and we don't think it will, but this is backup to make sure that we can pay what we need to if we don't have all the rates come in on time. So we don't have to activate any of that 1.6 if we don't need to. I can tell you we will need to, but whether it's 1.1 or 1.6, it really doesn't matter
So for some time, we've
because you're not paying interest on it. It is just sitting there in the background like your overdraft does.
for some time, we've been, I suppose, not completing the capital budgets and therefore the cash required for that. Following years, it'd be fair to say in the last 6 months, we've brought up an enormous amount of things that were outstanding for all variety of reasons. And
Yep.
so at the moment, as you know, we are trying to build our grant for Carcooma Road through heavy vehicle safety and productivity, which we'll hope we know in the next month or so. And then we'll be in a position, if we were to get that extra grant, be more efficient in dollars in spending on Carcooma Road. So we have probably only 2 projects that are likely now, I'm looking at the director, to flow through into next year. Whereas when we come into this time in June last year, we had quite a lot of projects that were 2/3 of the way through planning. We are finally catching up after the amount of money we've had over the last 5 years. The other part is that we historically have always received the next year's grant on the 30th of June prior.
And we're expecting that again.
And I would be very surprised, I don't think it'd be very wise for the Minister to stand up at the local government conference in Canberra on the early July and say that you didn't pay us. Because if we think we've got cash flow issues, we talk to other mayors from other states, they've got enormous problems. So I'm reasonably confident it'll all come together. The point I might make about this is we don't have to draw this until we have to. Sorry, I'm looking at Councillor Roundtree now. There's a question.
Yep, so the audit.
I haven't got a mover or a seconder yet.
So the Audit and Risk Committee considered that, suggested we consider the requirement, so it's an
Yeah.
overdraft, we're only going to draw it down as and when we need it, but also note that the projects that we're going to do, and it's to do with the invoicing, those projects are set in stone that we're going to do that.
Through you, Mayor, so those projects were earmarked when we were going to do a debenture. So
Right.
that is no longer as relevant as it was probably from last meeting where the finance group said that they would like an asset put against each of the, for the loan, so that a bit like you're building a house, they like to know what their asset is as a security, not that that works that way for local government. Now that it's an overdraft arrangement, that list of projects is much more flexible. So
Yeah.
whatever way you look at it, CAD is much more flexible from our point of view.
I'm happy with that. So back to you, I caught the tail end of what the Mayor had to say about the Canalpin toilets. So could you please just reiterate what you had to say?
For a long time, we've been working on getting some federal or state funding.
It's both.
Both. It's a combination to fund this changing places toilet. Now, to be fair to say that negotiations on this have been extended, and I think we're very close, Director. Josh?
We're just waiting on final designs, and then we've got to seek costings, detailed costings, and then it'll be signed off by both of the feds and the state.
Yes.
So there's been a very long process, councillor, as you're aware, I'm sure.
I just didn't want to
Yeah.
think that I misheard.
But in
No.
keeping the cost down to our ratepayers, sometimes these processes take, I can almost say, years longer than we would hope.
Thank you.
I'm looking for a mover. Look, Peter, you the mover.
Yeah, I'd like to move it with a variation. Following that written motion at the moment, that this motion revokes motion 027/24.
Through you, Mayor, the advice from the governance office, it automatically will do that, but you can make it clear if you want.
That'd be good. And I'd,
Like that, and it revokes.
that it revokes motion 027/24, which was the debenture loan motion passed at the last meeting.
and I'm happy to second
As a
it.
second point, so you've moved councillors Peach and Roundtree with that addition. Councillor Peach, you've got the floor still. You want to speak?
I think-
to-
and I'll
to-
just-
To your enhanced motion?
Thank you. I'd just like to note, thanks to the executive for pursuing this after the discussions around the motion at the last meeting. This has a potential benefit to ratepayers of $40,000+ in the next little while. And I think it's a good outcome in trying circumstances.
Give me a second. Actually, we don't need a formal motion for the vote. Thank you. Yep, that's right. Councillor Roundtree, you're the seconder.
Yes, I'm happy with the motion.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion, please? There's being no one, you'll close.
So closed.
Okay, the motion is, had that slight addition, was been added as point 1 now, so that's even better. Everyone understands that? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Hang on. Stop. I'm going to start that one again because there's been a lot of holding of faces in the last 20 seconds. Put the motion again. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Mavis
Made it a
voted
little bit
against the
more clearer,
motion.
didn't it?
The balance of the 6 councillors have all voted for the motion, so I declare it carried. Sorry. Carried. Number 12, roads and infrastructure. Report the minutes of the meeting we had at Tintinara. Councillors, someone move that way, please. Councillor Arthur is the mover. Is there a seconder? Don't rush me. Peach. Any discussion around that? Shouldn't be. Councillor Bland?
I just,
No discussing. Go on.
discussion, it's a thank you. In relation to the Meningie Area School Governing Council Chair, has acknowledged that he received very prompt feedback from the council staff and was very pleased with the 3 school buses.
Kind of it. Okay,
Question, thank you,
Yeah.
Mr Mayor. The question is, in the minutes where I'd asked a question about notice requesting an update on inspection of trees in the council area. Where is the council at the moment with that, please?
Director will have a go. Yep.
Yeah, we've got our quotes back from an arborist and, believe that they're going to start speak for early next.
Thank you.
They're doing, assessments of the high-risk trees in playgrounds, and
And that'll include the one yeah, thank you.
completed ones.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Anyone else, councillors?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to ask a question about the question I asked about the new zone traffic management signage rules. Affect it, and how it's going to have a workshop and then a report. I think that this, as part of the budget process, is something that has to be given AAA rating, because it is,
Urgency.
it could be a very, very big cost to this council.
So,
With the 250 metre and only being able to do 2 kilometres at a time, you know, it's going to be pretty catastrophic. So we really need to know before we start looking at our budgets.
our trouble may be that the new code, has it been adopted or where is it at?
Well, we are working to it apparently, but
Well,
it doesn't
let's
start
find
in
out.
July.
Find out here.
Through you, Mayor, we are still doing investigations, but as we said at that committee meeting, we will come back with a briefing as soon as possible on that, as soon as we've worked out the details.
Mr Mayor, may I say, as soon as possible is not good enough. It should be a priority.
What has surprised me, council, how I think nearly all local governments haven't, sort of comes quite quickly when things come down from above, doesn't it? And I'm talking to other mayors, most of them are unaware of it.
I realise that.
I think this is why I say this is I think it'll be important to take it to an MRLGA or a SAROM as fast as possible. Because until we see the full consequence of the law, we won't be able to know what the full cost is. At this stage, I think we need to wait for that.
Well, how can we, if it comes in on the 1st July, correct, Josh? Joshua? I think it comes in on the 1st July.
As soon as we can get a report, we will.
Yeah. But, you know, we set a budget on the 30th of June for next year.
Because I take your point, but if we don't know yet quite what it involves, it's a bit hard to second guess it.
Or we do know what it involves.
Well, I don't know if we do. That's-
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
We've had some preliminary, I've had some preliminary discussions with the team leaders and the operators. One of the challenges that we have is within our road network, how much of that network are we going to have to abide by those 2 kilometre restrictions? Now, one of our operators there and then rattled off 6 or 7 roads going, yep, well, I know that these particular roads, we're going to have challenges there. He rattled off another 6 or 7 that won't, you know, those restrictions won't hamper his progress. So there's a bit of work to do just understanding our network before we can come up with an operational understanding what those deficiencies might be. So it is in hand, we are looking at it, but it is going to take a little bit.
Okay, other questions? There being none, you'll close, councillor. You move the motion. Close.
Close.
This is item 12. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. (11.1), Office of the Chief Executive Officer's report. There's a recommendation, councillors. Go with the recommendation first.
Question?
Your question, you're okay?
Just on the CEOs attended by, meetings attended by, February 20th, your meeting with the Mayor and Green and Gold Energy. Is there anything you can share with us about that meeting?
Are you going?
Yeah, you go, it's your report.
This is a bespoke solar company that came to see us. They, again, are looking at opportunities across our district. The one thing that they were interested in, but was the limitations that we've talked about in this chamber around sapin and farmers at the end of the line in terms of access or maximising their access to solar power. So it was really just a preliminary meeting to say, hello, we're here. But when we mentioned that particular issue, they seemed quite keen to work with people in the community, and we're starting to progress that meeting so that they can meet with farmers and whoever else may be interested to see if there are some solutions from a commercial perspective.
Excellent.
Through the chair, the CEO of that company is on the Sapin Advisory Board.
That's right.
Oh, great. That's handy. Excellent. And the second one was February the 21st, the Senate Rural and Regional, about the regional bank closures.
We may be better to ask
Yeah.
Councillor Peach, who was the spokesperson for that.
No, it was a very good opportunity to be able to present to them. Some of the questions asked were quite precise to our region. The Coorong District Council put across their presentation probably from a more fact-based approach as to what was occurring there. I probably took a bit more of a relatable effect on the ground. Communities that have been affected. I think the one takeaway, and I've had a few people call me about it since, is the fact that we were a council without a bank was quite shocking to some of them.
Oh, that's a good point.
Overall, it was a really good opportunity to put the need across. I then did a follow-up interview on Sky News the next morning regarding an off-the-cuff comment I made about the banks taking the communities for granted and essentially forcing the change on despite not having to face any lessening of their profit margins. That's about it.
Well done.
Lovely photo of you on the TV. Round
Early.
3.
It was early.
One last question. February 26th, you met with representatives of DIT, SAPOL, CFS, police.
Same meeting we were in about traffic diversions.
The trip, right, okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Well, we'll get someone move the report.
I just have a question. I presume it's just a changing allocation in the income and expenditure summary. There's a variation of rates income down in October and service charges going up, November, by what appears to be an equivalent amount.
I will check, but I think through you, Chair, that's probably just the ebb and flow. I'll have a little look. See if there's- but
There's about a $500,000 variance.
Someone move the report, please. Councillor Roundtree's the mover. Will second it? Councillor O'Hara, thank you. Any further questions in relation to this report? There being none, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Number 2 is the Director, Community and Corporate Information Report, councillors. Any questions in that report, councillor Roundtree?
Just, I may have asked this one before, but with the custom requests, why do we do it at 10 days? Why do we say past 10 days and maybe not past 30, or do none get to 30 days?
that's
Why 10 days?
basing because 10 days seems to be a reasonable amount of time where we would like to. Thank you. They're just saying it's actually in our charter.
In our charter, okay, and so after 10 days, we don't let him go 30?
There will be some that will, just because of the nature of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions in this report, councillor Bland?
I just want to follow up on councillor Roundtree's question, and that is on feedback. When a CRM goes in, while we get an acknowledgement of the CRM, when do we get feedback on the actual action or non-action, subject to when it may and may not be done?
We being the elected members.
Whoever actually writes the CRM.
So there will be some that will be obvious depending on the nature of the CRM that we've done it. And there were some that we won't. It is an area we probably could improve on, but generally we're intent on getting it done rather than feedback, and we have looked at processes to make sure that happens. We haven't quite nailed that yet in some instances.
Would agree with that comment. Thank you.
I haven't got a mover or a seconder yet, so councillor Bland is the mover of Community and Corporate. We receive a note report. Councillor Maidment, is your question or a seconder?
I'll second it.
You. Is there any further questions? There being none, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 3, Infrastructure and Assets Report. Same issue, the same. Someone move there, please.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, you want to move first though?
Okay.
Right, then your question is?
Feel like it's bribery, but no. In February, there were 19 overweight bins. Is the weight of the bin decided visually, or are they weighed? And if they're weighed, how was residents aware of the weight of the bin?
Directors can answer.
I'll take it on notice. I'm fairly sure that they can weigh them in arm.
As they pick them up.
As they pick them up, a buzzer goes off to say that they're overweight, but I'll take it on notice, follow and circulate it.
So just on further, are residents made aware of what the weight ought to be for those bins? Like, would they know?
If you contaminate the green, you get a notice.
Okay, so would,
I did.
Um,
Put a bit of wood in there, cycle bin,
well, that was naughty.
and if
May
it's
well be a
overweight,
stick.
you get a notice too.
We'll await a response from the director from Sol.
I'll include,
I
well,
thought
as
sticker on it.
Councillor Arthur has said, if you contamination bin, I'd imagine if you have an overweight bin, you would get a letter or a
Yeah,
notice.
overweight's the same, you get a notice.
Well, I'll confirm that.
So there's no fees attached to any of those, no fines or anything for that sort of stuff?
No.
I think,
I think if you're a perennial,
yeah, you
they
can
may,
be refused, I think, in the contract, they can after.
but we've not had that issue come up.
So I also noticed then, from May 23 to February 24, 118 bins were damaged or replaced. Who pays for the replacement bins? Is it the council ratepayer or the contractor?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice. I believe that as part of the contract,
Yep.
repairs are included, but just
All right. Thank you.
That was been a subject we discussed probably 6 to a month ago. I don't know if we ever come to a conclusion.
Right.
Red lid bins, the oldest bins in the system, should
They
be,
carry 3 red bins with them to
Yeah.
replace.
whether
But
they
they
should
don't
and
because
who,
they
and
just
who
replace
pays, and
Who
who was the original owner of. We'll leave that with the director to follow up as a,
I think the original was council.
it was originally owner. Any other I need a seconder, by the way. Councillor Aidman, I'm going to go with the seconder. Who's next on questions?
I've got
Peach.
questions if I may.
Yeah.
Noting the old dog pound was no longer usable at the Meningie Depot, and replaced with the new dog cage, just had a question around the length of time that those dogs would be potentially kept in that facility, because there seems to be a fair difference in the size of what we had versus what's there now.
Size of the pound or the size of the dog?
I'm not, I'll just say, like, we keep our work dogs in a cage very similar to what's been purchased. I'm just thinking for dogs that may be picked up that aren't potentially used to being kept in confined spaces for periods of time.
To the chair, we have a general inspector,
Yes.
and he will not keep a dog confined, especially if it's, he goes out of his way. And in fact, he's always got a list of people who are looking out for a dog. And he'll rehome them as quickly as possible, unless, of course,
If I could just follow up on that, I know of many instances where our inspector has, in his own time, come down to pick up a dog, often at a resident's house, make sure that the dog is kept safe. And there are also many residents who will do the same thing and put it on Facebook until such time. So very minimal use, I would.
No, I've certainly not, I know the General Inspector takes great care and lengths when he's dealing with them. It's more around the downgrade in size, I suppose.
Is there, you're asking if there's a statutory size or just a general?
No, my question was how long would we potentially keep dogs for before moving them on? And I'm happy for that to be taken on notice. I'm just, yeah.
Yep.
Another question, note the demolition of the CFS shed at Meningie is now occurring in March, according to this. Just wondered for further information on that and what cost we were anticipating that to be.
Through you, Chair, it's imminent if it hasn't already happened, and I haven't asked in the last week, so I'm not sure. Could the Meningie people tell me if it's still there or not?
It's still there.
Still there. So it's very
No
soon.
signs, no fencing up.
We had a little, not difficulty, but contractors booking them in when Sappan had done their bit. In the budget, I think we put 30,000 in. I think the quote that has come back just recently to demolish it is around the 25,000 mark. So it's under the budget.
One further question, there was well, it was CRM, but an email sent regarding maintenance of the toilet facilities in Tintinara. I don't note it in the community facilities operations list. Just wondered if that's been actioned.
Sorry, could you repeat that question, Councillor Peach?
There was an email sent on behalf of a resident regarding a number of damaged areas in the toilet facilities in Tintinara back in February. Just don't note it in the community facilities report, and I just want.
We'll have to follow that up, unless you can give us more detail.
There was leaking cisterns, broken locks, a number of things wrong in the facilities, in the public toilets.
Have to be circulated later, I'd say, councillor. Okay, who else? No one else. Close, councillor Roundtree.
Closed.
So the motion is that council receive and note the report. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Councillors, we're up to 12.1. Councillors, there is a question on notice. And move to the confidential section. Part of the answer needed to be there, in our view. So that's questions on notice, 12.1, that's done. 12.2, questions without notice. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got two questions, if I may. First one is the old CFS shed on Railway Terrace, Tarlin Bend, not in use now for some 3 years. Where are we at with that and the ownership status, please?
Who wants to answer?
Through you, Mayor. The CFS shed is still with the CFS. At some point, it will come back to council's responsibility. But as with any infrastructure like that, one of the conditions of coming back to council is that it's made good before we take it back. So we're in negotiations with them, which are quite protracted, but we are waiting for them to make good before we take it back.
Thank you. My next one, if I may, Mr Mayor. Tarlin historians have paid for some storyboards back in December to council. They wanted to know how the installation of them at the Wellington East Cemetery is going, please.
Through you, Mayor. Those storyboards are finished. We haven't installed them yet. We did get a quote to get them installed professionally. That was quite exorbitant, so we are making arrangements with the outdoor staff to have them installed. That will be within the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. That's all.
Any questions without notice, councillors? O'Hara?
Yeah, I've got one. It's to do with the workers at Meningie.
Get me carefully here, councillor.
Yeah, no, I'm not the individuals, I don't even know 'em. But have they got a roster, a quality assurance? They tick off a job when they do it, or do they just do a job when they see it needs doing, or what is the story there? Because we don't know. And they're higgity-piggity what they do, you know, like.
Right, well, I'm just trying to think how we handle this question. Be on notice or how we're going to do this?
First of all, Mayor, can I ask what's the purpose of the question, councillor O'Hara?
Well, have they got quality assurance that they tick off the job as they do it? Have they got a list of jobs that they have to do every week, every fortnight, every month?
So how's their days outlaid ahead, is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay,
There are two parts to that question. One is that there will be jobs that they would have as a matter of rotation, mowing and things like that. And then there will be ad hoc jobs that generally either members of the community might come up to ad hoc, and despite the best advice to staff to say, please put in a CRM, I know that staff will go and do the best they can at that point in time, which does disrupt their day-to-day activities. So there's two parts to it. They do have a roster, if that's what you want to call it, or a sequence of events that they would do every month, depending on the seasons. And then there would be the ad hoc stuff that they would do as well. If you have a particular issue about the quality of a particular job, I'd be happy to hear about it out of session.
Yeah, that's not necessarily, just they seem to be, you know,
What's the
they
work
do this,
plan?
then they don't come back the next month and do it, or, you know? Just
There are
wondering.
lots of ad hoc requests in this organisation.
I understand that.
the director might want to have a go at this.
No, just to, second one, CEO has said, yeah, I would like to see a more, scheduled program of works. I really like to be active work in CRM and but having a robust plan where guys know what they're doing, there's some sort of KPI around, yep, this is the park, we've done that.
Yeah. Exactly what I was getting at, yeah.
I have a follow-up
Councillor
question.
Bland, yep.
Not just on that, because I do understand where councillor O'Hara has been coming from. And that is around what is the process for staff to report concerns or issues, and to be able to follow up on them. I'm not going to go direct. I'm sure our director is aware of them already, so I won't bring them up. But do they have a process around reporting an issue, whether it be a tree branch or a broken piece of equipment, whatever? Because most of those CRMs that go in, I think, are probably around some of that. So they're probably easily answered, but we don't necessarily know.
So staff use the CRM process a bit like internally as well as externally,
Okay.
so that we have a visibility of all the issues that have to be done, whether they've come from an external source or internally.
Thank you. I wasn't aware that they were using the CRMs as well as external.
Anyone else? Beach?
A question regarding the road treatments happy for this to be taken on notice if it's necessary, Mr Mayor. Shoulder treatments on Gunwell Road and Woodswell Road, which were done 3 or 4 years ago, where rubble was placed over sections of about 400 metres and some work done. And I believe talking to the contractors at the time that it was a trial related to shoulder treatment. And I just wondered if there was any results from that trial.
Struggling
I think we'll take that on notice.
notice.
And there was one road, and I'm not sure whether it's that one. Were you on the tour when we went with James and had a look at all the roads? Was that one of them? Councillors, help me out. Was that one of the roads we looked
I
at?
can get to go on.
Gunwell and what was the other one?
Gunwell and Woodswell, so there's a section approximately 4 kilometres out of Tintinara, maybe 3, on the left going into town where there's a treatment, and then going down Gunwell Road towards Hut Road, there's another area that's been done about 7 kilometres down before the sweeping bend on the left. And they're just
You-
random allocated patches of rubble.
What we might do is bring back a report at some months. I know that one of the treatments needed a passage of time before you could tell whether it was going to be successful or not, but we might bring back a report maybe to the next INA meeting around this. I think there's 3 areas where we've done some different techniques, and whether we'd rate them as a success or not.
Other questions without notice? Okay, I'm moving on, councillors. 13.1, motions with notice. I have nil. 13.2 is motions without notice. Peach.
I have one, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a motion that council actively seek grant funding to improve the surface at the front of the Tintinara Health Clinic for the disabled and elderly for access to the clinic. The background to that, Mr Mayor, if I may, is that the current surface, while a hard surface, is quite rough and uneven, and walkers and so forth do jam on rocks and so forth that are there.
So this is in front of the Health and Rec Centre at Tintinara.
Correct, from the car park.
Material is, if I remember, some people showing me a year or two ago is a rubble, well, no, a tight rubble surface. You won't call it loose rubble.
Yeah, it's from the car park to the concrete surface that leads to the health centre.
No, there. So, councillor, all I could say is it mightn't be the highest one to pursue in terms of priorities, but I think I'll.
No, Mr Mayor, that's why I'm not asking to fund it. I'm asking to look into
We
potential.
seek grant funding,
grants.
that's my point. But nonetheless, okay, you've moved that motion, now we go on getting it. Ashley?
And just noting for the elderly and disabled I'm thinking there might be some grants in that space that would enable us to hopefully fully fund it from a grant.
Okay, you're a seconder. Councillor
Sorry.
Foreman.
Mayor, can we change the wording to people with disabilities, please?
More than happy
So
to.
we want to accept we're getting on.
What about elderly and people with disabilities? Because
Correct.
elderly
Yep.
might not. Yeah.
It's people with disabilities and elderly. Or older persons, actually. Sorry, councillor.
Older persons is different to elderly.
Yeah, no, I'd just say elderly. I'm happy to accept the other one, but I'll go with elderly on that.
Councillor Foreman's the seconder, as long as he's happy.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
speak
okay.
to it, councillor.
I'm happy with
Not that
the,
you're elderly yet.
thank you, Mr Mayor. No, I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Do you need to speak to the motion, councillor? Pretty self-explanatory.
Happy to consider it spoken to, Mr Mayor.
Anyone else wish to comment? Has been identified to me in different versions of council in the community in the past, that area. There is no one, you'll close.
So close, Mr Mayor.
Looking at my screen, which is quite interesting. Okay, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Anyone else with a motion without notice, please? LeBland.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that council look at the pros and cons of moving Tintinara office from its current location to Tintinara Health Centre space. including costings of repair of the building and any other approximate costs for move.
Councillor, I think, I don't disagree, reasonable motion. I think it's be far better as a motion, notice of motion. I don't see this as an urgency, probably what I'm saying, but it does have some consequential debate around it. I think I'm going to ask you to move it formally at the next meeting.
I can do that, Mr. Mayor.
We'll be fine. Okay, anyone else? There's no one, I move on. Minute action list, councillors. Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. I am looking at 12323. So in May last year, councillor Peach moved a motion that when councillors meeting with community groups, excluding individual meetings, that members of council shall be invited as a matter of course unless the community group in question requests otherwise, and that a protocol be developed around this procedure. The object of the motion was to ensure that as elected members, we are not blindsided by matters that community feel we ought to be aware of. To date, there have been a number of occasions where elected members have not been aware of meetings until after the fact. The motion was two-part: one, that we be informed as of the date of the motion, and two, that a protocol be developed. And I note that the comment for that motion reads that a framework will be incorporated into the next iteration of the community engagement policy due in June 24. So my question is, has council taken the view that they won't enact the objectives of the motion until the policy is reviewed?
Yeah, gotta keep up with that.
To be perfectly frank, councillors, we have struggled with how we would develop this policy, and I think I said that at the time. It does seem like a natural fit for the community engagement policy because that's what we do at these times. We haven't done any work on this particular motion, and we were only talking about it the other day, but we are struggling with how to do it.
So
Are you going to enact objectives which let us know when this happens? We don't need to have a policy
Oh,
to
no.
do that.
So I'm not aware of anything that we have done that would have run foul of this intent.
I can think of a meeting that might be occurring tomorrow night that we don't know about.
Could you elaborate?
The council is meeting with the Tintinara Action Club regarding Lake Indawara, I believe, tomorrow night.
That is just an upgrade of the lease.
That is a meeting with the community group that councillors should be aware of per the motion.
So I suppose you illustrate the difficulty of the interpretation of at what point it's an operational, purely operational issue over a general discussion. I think that's where the.
I believe, Mr Mayor, that the motion was quite specific.
Yeah, I
When
accept.
council is meeting with community groups, excluding individual one-on-one meetings, or if the community group asks for councillors not to be present.
Yeah, no, I accept your point.
And I must say, when councillor Roundtree raised this with me the other day, I was a little concerned that we were looking at from May to potentially June of this year before it was dealt with. Yeah.
I just don't, I don't know how we're going to sort of get the finer point on the edge of this debate. At what point, what group, at what time?
Is there a problem, Mayor, with like informing us of whenever there's meetings?
Well,
and
some
we
of them
can
might be on an hour's notice. This is one of the issues I've probably got with it.
Then we wouldn't go.
Mr Mayor, look, that's going to the extreme of what may occur. In my mind, I took it that once that motion was moved, we would be notified about these meetings. And I accepted that a framework needed to be developed around it, and that was fine. But for that to be over 12 months after the effect of the motion, and notice not to have been given in the meantime, I don't accept that, I'm sorry.
So continue to work towards adhering to the motion, I think.
Well, that would be good if we could just be advised. I mean, there has been other meetings and I can't specify which ones they are right at this very minute. I have to go back through my diary, but there have been others that people have expected me to be at and I haven't known about them. At least two. and I'll just have to go back and I'll find them for you, but I feel like there's an expectation that we know, but that the community clearly think that we're informed about things. And sometimes we're just not. And sometimes we only find out about stuff when the community ring us up and tell us about something. And I just think it's useful to have as much information as the point. Thank you.
Okay. We followed up. I'm still in that minute action list, sorry. I'm trying to work out where I am.
I note, Mr Mayor, that this doesn't have a near completion date, but I just wondered if there was anything further regarding the Salt Creek dwellers situation. You would prefer I didn't ask that question?
You may, yes, we asked the question of did the final drawings are not yet finished. Yep. So we're in constant contact with them, but I think I've said on a few occasions, I don't expect to see anything built this calendar year. Much
So-
as you'd like to.
The three, Mayor, I just have two more things. 12423, I had to go back and actually look at what that was because it just said Councillor L.F. Roundtree, Canalpin Hall Committee, and I had to go back and work out what it was. I'm just wondering whether the title of that, because it will come up again, could just have after the word committee as a section 41 committee, because that's what that particular motion referred to. So that's just a minor thing, just so I don't have to keep reminding myself of what it was. And also 19122, which is a completed action. This is to do with the Meningie Pelican structure. It says that a report says that there is no budget for 23-24 and that the project will need to have a budget consideration for 24-25 financial year, but it's my recollection for installing a replica structure would be entirely funded by grants, not out of council budget. That was my, I mean, I might have that wrong, but that was my understanding. So I was surprised to see in the notes that it will go up for budget consideration in 24-25.
For you, Mayor. No, there's no intention of bringing that for 24-25, given the budget is fairly tight.
Yeah.
If we were bringing that to council, again, it would be with looking for grants to do that. But at this stage, I suppose we've decided that's a discretionary spend. If there was a grant that came up that suited that, we would bring that back as a separate motion. But at this point, there is no intention of having a budget item or a consideration for extra artwork there at this point in time.
So the note then through you, Mayor, needs to be amended to say that and not that it's going up for budget consideration.
Let me have a look at it.
The last sentence, last couple of lines of it.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Which one are you looking at, councillor?
19122 under completed actions.
To you, the notes could be a little clearer, but those notes have been like that probably for about the
I
last.
haven't, I've only just, and it's the same with the previous one where it says Canalpin Hall Committee. I couldn't remember what that was either.
There's no intention, unless you, as a chamber, said to me, you want some public art there and you want a budget line or you want to have a look for grants. We weren't doing it for 24-25.
But I think we actually did say we wanted grant, like if you could, if there was a grant available.
It's on our list. We would look at that as a matter of course. It's a bit like Councillor Peach's question around grants. We would continue to look for grants wherever they are.
Abilities for grant.
Sure.
Councillor Peach, though.
I just had a question, Mr Mayor, regarding the disposal of the train carriages.
As per a minute.
Yes, sorry, 256-23. Noting that initially it was early in the year, then March, now April. I just wonder where that process is at. And
For you, Mayor, we just haven't got to it from a resources point of view. The community consultation is finished, just at the next stage of doing the actual EOI to remove it, and for people to express interest, we haven't got to that point yet. Yep.
Not so much us, availability, and also we have to deal with some feedback from the consultation process, ownership of the garage, so we have to go through that process.
Wow.
Moving into EOI.
through the chair, is that resolved now?
The plan.
I would just like to make a statement in relation to 23823, which is the skate park shelters. And now, of course, the mural has been completed. And thank council infrastructure staff in particular for the work they've done with community, getting the shelter and the pathing appropriately in around that small playground. I know that the community fundraised significantly for that, and I do believe that there is still a space there for a water fountain to go in, and I am of the belief, Councillor Moore, that that will also be funded by community to go in as well. And of course, the mural opening is Thursday afternoon.
Yes, we was thinking about whether the press will be there from Councillor Bannon O'Hara, you're picking up that load this weekend at Menengi in public.
We're talking about some of it on the way home.
Yeah,
Yes, we are.
see Councillor O'Hara looking keen. Yes, fortunately, I've
Is
got
it
to
coming
get,
for breakfast?
I've got to get away, and I think the Deputy Mayor's also got some commitments, so we're leaving it in your hands at this stage. And the other councillors are more than happy to assist those around the Friday night, Saturday process at Menengi. Saturday morning at a very early hour, which probably makes it a bit harder for us people at a distance.
Which just means we won't get our makeup on in time, will we, Councillor O'Hara?
We'll work it out.
Depends when there's an early
There's the
section
Uber.
of home and away. Now, who else has got a minute action list? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Maben. I'm going to start with Councillor Maben, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, minute number 107/23, the stainless steel bin covers for Taylor look very nice that have been put around. I haven't noticed any of the old ones. Have they been put around to their various sites as yet?
We are putting them back at our depot. Locations where there is no heights in it.
Yep. Lovely, thank you, Josh.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 266/23, the council consider installing appropriate traffic counters in the vicinity of Railway Terrace and Granites Road intersection Tarlin Bend. I realise that we'd probably could tie up 4 road traffic counters, but hopefully with no projects sort of happening, are they available now to carry out this request, please? What's going on?
They want to notice.
Take that one on notice, thank you.
Right, anyone else with a question? The minute action list. Look, I'm considering that done, councillors. Pushing on. So, for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting's about to move into confidence and the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting. Thank you, everyone. We've completed our agenda, and so I formally declare the meeting closed at 7:52. Thank you.
Come on.